Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you're joining us from worldwide. I'm Sterling. It's great to have you back on the channel. This show is being recorded for Sunday, August 6th, 2023. As always, these shows are provided for entertainment purposes only. All the information I share with you comes directly, real time, through my guides, angels, extended spiritual counsel, ETs, famous people from history. So for entertainment purposes only. Also, for those who need to reach me, just go to sterlingpsychicmedium.com, look for the Book a Session tab. Very straightforward from there. Also, if you get a chance, just remember to like, subscribe, share, hit the notification bell, and all those things really support the channel. And lastly, just a big thanks for all those that use the super thanks and the donate tab on the website. We see all of that participation. It's greatly appreciated. We are running a contest on the channel. Every time we reach a new level of 1,000 subscribers, we actually give away a free half-hour session with myself. I think we're just getting ready to cross over to 40,000 subscribers. I think we're less than 100 subscribers away. So whatever show that we put out, when we cross that number, is where we randomly select the winner for the half-hour session from the comments on the show, and those comments starting off with the word love. And you have to be a subscriber to the channel. And simple as that. So everybody, thanks for participation. We pull all the questions from these shows from our community board on our YouTube channel. I know a lot of questions seem to come up in that area. Only questions that are placed on the community board are actually incorporated into these shows. Again, I think we had another 500 or 600 questions this week. My wife goes through them. I think today we're down to 65 questions for the show. But that's where the questions come from. So if you send emails into the office with a question or put questions in like announcements hot off the press, those questions never make it into these shows. So just thought I'd mention that. My office team was mentioning that a lot of questions seem to find their way in other areas of our website, that kind of a thing. So thanks again for everybody's participation. Real quickly, a lot going on this week in the news. So we're a bit on indictment watch coming up here on some new indictments coming up. Looks like out of Georgia. And I think, I don't know what the questions are for this show, but I'm sure we'll get into some of those topics. So with no further ado, let's get going on the show for today for August 6th, 2023. Also, make a quick footnote here that Paul Reubens, was Pee Wee Herman, passed away this week. I think it was on July 30th, if I remember correctly. And, as always, I try to keep an open mic, if you will, kind of an open mic night for anybody that wants to come through and speak at these shows. And Paul Reubens did come through this morning. And so I wanted to share kind of the messaging he had, which I thought was very humorous. He really has a great sense of humor, even on the other side. So again, no further ado, we'll get going on this week's show. Question 65, does Paul Reubens, aka Pee Wee Herman, have a message for us? Hello, everybody. Can you hear me? I bet you did not think I would make it to the other side and try to communicate with you, but here I am. Everyone, please think of your favorite color and then send it to me in your dreams tonight. I will create magnificent artwork for all of you that places you in a place of imagination, inspiration, and creativity. My soul's purpose was to enlighten everyone and raise their energy and the energy of everyone in the world. I understood how lucky I was to develop the characters I used in my life, and I welcome the experience. I wish I had been more open with some of my struggles in life and written a memoir, but oh well, there's always next time. Wait, you did not realize I was coming back? I would never miss the clown and puppet show going on right now in the world. To all of my close friends, loved ones, and colleagues, and you know who you are, I am watching all of you, so always make sure you leave everyone with laughter just as I did. The problem with humanity is that it takes itself too seriously. In closing, I am thankful for all of the kind thoughts, prayers, and information people are sending my way in my honor. I see all of them. Remember, always rise to your highest good, no matter what the personal cost. Enjoy the big adventure on Earth. So Paul Reubens, wonderful message from him. And so I just, a lot of humor in that message. And it's interesting when he was starting to come through, he had like all these jokes. So it was, kind of got it down to a place where I think that his message was very clear and uplifting. So a wonderful guy. Paul Reubens, also known as Pee Wee Herman, had a very diverse career in the industry and passed away July 30th, but still very much around all of us and all his friends. 64 in the countdown. There's no known cause of the painful inflammatory bladder condition known as interstitial cystitis. I think it is cystitis. Will doctors be able to find the cause and cure? I'm not a doctor. I always have to say that. But what I'm getting from my team is that there are ways to mitigate symptoms right now. Whoever asked this question, there's ways through strict dietary regimens and lowering stress levels in life to control the symptoms. And then within about 3 years here, they're telling me there's a DNA-based solution or medication coming up here that's going to be very helpful. So some sort of DNA testing going on right now with blood work. There's medication coming up in about 3 years, but right now you can mitigate the symptoms. 63. What happens to people such as 45 when they cross over? Do they have the option to rehabilitate themselves and heal? Is there judgment involved? Well, not specifically judgment, but when you go through your life review, for all of us, you feel every bit of good and pain and feelings that you created in the world and caused people to feel. So there's a very extensive life review, especially for those like 45. If you have a lot of impact on the world, you're going to feel all that impact during a life review. So I don't know if they call it judgment, but it's certainly a very broad learning experience. And yeah, I mean, it's helpful to push people forward on the other side, but it's all part of an extensive life review. 62, Hi Sterling team and wife Linda. I just read an article where they found a biolab in Fresno, California. The owners of the warehouse were Chinese, and the FBI found rubella, COVID, smallpox, and numerous other infectious diseases. Experiment on mice. Over 700 animals were euthanized. This is a very disturbing scenario. Can you and your team elaborate on what exactly China is up to? Well, I get this is one of several labs nationwide in the US and worldwide. So this is not a unique lab, unfortunately. And the purpose of the lab is to investigate, create elements of what I call biowarfare. So it's not, not pleasant. This is nefarious. I'm being told the FBI and other world governments are researching these labs. Yeah, so they're around the world, but the reason for existence is around biowarfare. The good news is it looks like authorities are on to where a lot of these labs are. Absolutely. Okay, 61 the countdown. Hi, Sterling. You mentioned last week that the Senate and House will be majority Democratic in 2024. My question is, will it stay that way through Biden's second term or flip to Republicans during the midterms? What I'm getting, it looks to me like it's going to stay Democratic throughout the Biden term. Now, it's going to be a very close race in all areas, presidential, and it looks like down ballot, so to speak. So everybody needs to get out and vote. It's not going to be a slam dunk, but it does look like during Biden's term, during his second term, all of Congress, both the House and the Senate, will maintain a Democratic majority. 60. Will we see other states follow Michigan in indicting fake electors? If so, can your team tell us which states will take over or take similar measures? Yeah, it does look that way to me. So it looks like states like Arizona, Nevada, New Mexico, Wisconsin, maybe forgetting one or two, because Georgia's involved there. But yeah, this is many states are going to bring forth similar litigation that we've seen here. I think the question was on Michigan, about Michigan. Yeah, very similar. 59, will the Democrats have enough wins in 2024 to get something done, or will we see 4 more years of gridlock? I do see after the 2024 elections that there's a majority of Democrats in the House and the Senate, and it does appear to me that there'll be kind of a new emergence of a time period will be a lot of very good legislation that gets through. Amendments to the Constitution, things regarding banning of assault weapons, looks like voting rights legislation, rights around women's rights, reproductive rights. So it looks like a lot of interesting, legislation gets through. So I don't see gridlock. It does look like there's a major progress made. 58. Do you still see other Florida judges in Eileen Cannon's district working with Jack Smith to remove her from the documents case, or is it too late? I've seen this before, but it looks to me after several legal missteps that there's something that occurs here where the DOJ gets together with district judges in Cannon's district, and it looks like she does get moved aside for another judge. So my team's saying that Eileen Cannon will not serve out the term. That is, be the judge on the full trial. There's something here where there's a misstep and is then moved aside. 57. Hello, Sterling. Can you tell us when Israel is going to remove the current government and form a new positive, supportive governing system? I get this is really going to start to take place like mid next year. So I know Netanyahu, a very controversial figure, a lot of things going on in Israel. It looks to me like he's going to hang on through the end of this year, out into next year. But it looks like starting out into beginning to middle of next year, there's starting these significant changes that occur that over the next 1 to 2 years here, kind of a reorientation of the government that's more aligned with people and rights and things going on there. So, yeah, it looks to me, it's going to take some process here. It's not going to happen overnight, but they tell me big progress happening towards the middle of next year, 2024, and then ongoing from there. Looks like a replacement of the government. 56. Is there a way to learn how to connect with our innate self and heal ourselves from any disease, disorder, or any dysfunction? Yes, there is, but it takes full alignment with your angelic team, your guides and angels, working with ascended masters, archangels, all sorts of entities on the other side. So you really can make very significant progress in learning how to heal yourself. That's very true, but you do it in conjunction with much higher order angelic and spiritual energy. So it's true. 55. Hi, Sterling. I'm very curious to know the moment your wife realized that you were psychic. It actually, the big tipping point was the summer of 1992 when I was at an event with psychic medium Fred Fassett. For those who watch the channel, I've mentioned Fred before. Fred has since passed on. But it was at that event where Fred really kind of took me aside. We were sitting down talking with him and kind of shamed me into using my gift. I'd been using it in business, the entertainment industry, but he really said, start using the gift. And he asked me a few questions and told me to give him answers right away. They were psychic spiritual questions. And from that point on, my wife realized, there's really something here. And I remember on the drive home from Santa Barbara back into Southern California, Los Angeles area, that she asked me a load of questions in the car and kind of took copious notes. So it was really the summer of 1992 was kind of a tipping point where my wife, Linda, kind of perceived the gift. 54, dear Sterling, former Canadian Prime Minister Stephen Harper is a far-right conservative who speaks at the Federal Society and wants Canada to embrace Hungary's Viktor Orban's policies. When Harper was Prime Minister, he closed science centers and libraries. Will Harper be successful in bringing Republican politics tragically to Canada? Well, unfortunately, it looks like he's going to really make some inroads, still using like money from very conservative sources, even maybe the Federalist Society. But it does look like he's going to make some inroads there. So it'll be a force to be reckoned with. This individual really is trying to do things very similar to what's happening here in the U.S. right now. So everybody vote, be careful up in Canada. Everybody's going to have to be very vigilant. In fact, around the world, this is a problem, but so it looks like he's going to have unfortunate effect on Canadian politics. 53, Sterling, now that 45 has been indicted federally, do you see him actually going to trial? And if so, will the court allow it to be televised? I absolutely see the court trial being televised, but it looks like it's being televised because the powers that be, federal government, and it looks like all the legal teams believe that's the best way to get the information out there, as opposed to allowing, let's say, media channels interpret the case every day. So yeah, it does look to me like it's going to be televised, and they may put some parameters around it. So it might be like one pool camera, as they say, and then all the networks take a feed off the one pool camera or two pool cameras. So there's some sort of structure there, but looks like it will be televised. 52, hello, Sterling and team. Will you comment on 3 parallel and I believe related things currently going on in the government? I detect a pattern. Senator Tuberville blocking military promotions. Number 2, Rand Paul blocking diplomatic appointments in the State Department. And 3, J.D. Vance threatening to do the same for Department of Justice DOJ appointments. What is the end game? Well, it's true. There's some coordination going on behind the scenes with all these individuals, but they're trying to weaken democracy. So it's terrible. And this is going on in a lot of areas of government in our nation. But yes, whoever asked the question, it looks like there's some back-end coordination through some highly conservative groups that are trying to do this. 51, hi Sterling, will Leah Remini's legal case be successful? Can this put a stop to the harassment she's been enduring for 17 years? Yes, I'm not going to name the name of the church here because there's some guidelines here around for YouTube. But for those who are familiar with Leah Remini and her plight against a certain church group, if you will, yeah, it looks like she'll be successful over the next 2 years here. Looks like the harassment, they're talking about like surveillance on her and a lot of people that are trying to affect her life. Looks like the case is going to be successful and will have a monetary judgment as well. 50, Sterling, do you see a sort of revolution in China where Xi Jinping will be removed? I do, but not for about 5 years. So it's not going to happen anytime soon. It looks like for a good 5 years here, he'll be in power. And then there's some sort of a shift in power in China. 49, with the planet heating up and more people using air conditioning, is anyone working on other ways to cool down our buildings that is not bad for the environment? Well, they are. They're looking at more ecologically sound buildings and new forms of glass technology that's reflective and cooling technology for buildings, more efficient buildings. However, long term, and I've talked about this before, there's going to be more architecture and money put around underground cities and even underwater cities. So longer term, for a lot of areas around the world, there are going to be underground cities and underwater cities that will, in fact, not require as much air conditioning. So there's an evolution here, a couple of decades before a lot of the underground cities, underwater cities become more prevalent. But in the meantime, a lot of ecologically new technology to help cool buildings there are. And I'm being told that there's some new, a lot of conventional air conditioning systems use Freon or a form of Freon. It used to be R22. Now I think it might be R134 refrigerant. I forget what the number is. There's a new type of refrigerant being developed right now that's eco-friendly. So that's coming too. 48. Currently, there are 2 types of student loans, federal and private. You cannot currently refinance private loans with federal loans, often losing many benefits like those, public service loan forgiveness and better interest rates. Do you see the federal government allowing private loans to be refinanced into federal loans? I do. That particular change looks like it's going to happen after the 2024 presidential election. Yep, it'll definitely happen. Okay, 47, the countdown. A district court in Oklahoma has ruled in favor of the First United Methodist Church to disaffiliate from the requirements of the United Methodist Church Book of Discipline. The outcome of this case could have implications for all denominations and others who own church properties, and also gets in the way of the matter of separation of church and state. Do your guides or angels see this case going to the Supreme Court and or changing the status of separation of church and state for our country? Yeah, it does look like it's going to go to the Supreme Court. And it looks like the reason that certain, let's say, churches want to separate from the major book of the United Methodist Church at its core has to do with acknowledgement of, let's say, gay rights and gay clergy or something about LGBTQ plus rights. So it looks like it will go to the Supreme Court. And unfortunately, at least at this time, looks like the court's going to rule in favor of the churches trying to separate. So this is going to come back around again when the Supreme Court gets more balanced. But right now, it looks like that core issue has to do with like LGBTQ rights, is what my team's telling me. So looks like whoever the church groups are trying to separate will be allowed to separate. 46, Sterling, can you tell us anything more about the upcoming UAP-related sighting you mentioned previously? Perhaps the month and location on the West Coast to look for this. Well, this is going to be witnessed up and down the West Coast, the western coast of the U.S., and it's going to be acknowledged by military aircraft first. So these would be similar to a smaller Tic Tac UFOs, UAPs, and also a larger, looks like a mothership. So it'll be witnessed by a lot of people. The military will first track it. And it's going to happen this year. Probably at first, my team was saying like the latter part of summer, which we're kind of coming into right now. But it's coming. So it'll be something that'll be talked about. It'll be in the news. 45. A friend was telling me about the dangerous ocean temperatures we're having and the efforts being made to save the coral reefs. Will our friends from other planets be able to help us? They will, because there's new technology coming to clean up the ocean. So it's like new algae technology. But whatever this is will help to turn around some of the toxic chemicals and global warming, global climate change effects. But this is going to happen over a decade, a period of a decade. So there's help coming from ET groups, and that it'll first be, they're telling me, in the form of a new algae, and then go on from there. And then that's going to help the coral, which I guess is the question the person asked. 45. Hi, Sterling. Does your team have any treatment for trichotillomania, hair pulling disorder? When will it be available? Again, not a doctor here, but it looks like drugs they're using for Alzheimer's may in fact have an effect on this hair pulling disease. So whoever asked the question, I would do some research, talk to some doctors on drugs they're using for Alzheimer's. And that looks like 3 to 5 years down the road, gene editing, Cas9 technology, that's CRISPR technology, by the way, spelled CRISPR. It's a medical abbreviation, that's CRISPR. But that gene editing technology will also come into play for this. And now they say about 4 to 5 years is when that CRISPR technology will be available. 43, I've spent the majority of my life single, and I'm 34 years old. I have friends who are single men my age, but nothing long-term has ever developed. It's almost like we are all still healing from past traumas and willing to get hurt. Deep down, there's a fear of being vulnerable and opening up to someone or staying in a bubble of safety alone. I know a ton of people going through this right now. Is there a reason for relationships being made later in life? Well, this is all part of, the world is going through a major reset right now, the Earth. And anyway, overall, my team's always said the major reset that we're going through is a 3-decade reset, 2020 to 2050. Now, regards to whoever asked this question, we just came out of a pandemic, a lot of post-pandemic effects going on here, but looks like I'm seeing a lot of reset in people's lives that is becoming more open, more social activity, more love connections, relationships. Looks like it's all starting to happen here over the next number of years. So whoever asked the question, a bit of a reset going on, post-pandemic effect, but I'm seeing kind of a new emergence now over the next number of years here for couples getting together. And so that is kind of be a problem of the past. 42. Hello, are ETs contributing to pollution on the planet? For example, What do they do with waste, trash, discarded equipment? Do they have toilets? Or do they have landfills? Do they dump waste? Do they have policies, protocols for self-waste? Well, first off, extraterrestrial aircraft do not, there's no waste from the aircraft. So everything is biodegradable. The propulsion systems, the anti-gravity propulsion systems use very exotic materials. So everything's very much biodegradable. It doesn't create pollution. So there is really no waste to have to deal with. They've already figured out a very advanced way to do that. Now remember, their technology has evolved over millions of years. It will be shared over the next number of years here with Earth. Be rolled out rather slowly, but yeah, that's all coming. So the extraterrestrials, the fact that dozens of species that I've connected with, they don't have problems with, say, waste or pollution. 41, a YouTube astrologer is warning about some disturbance of the stock market for the end of August, September. Do you see it happening? No, I see a number of normal cycles for the stock market, but I don't see what I call a unusual crash or something in that time frame. We're going to go through a lot of really cyclical activity over the next year, 2 years here with the stock market. But all in all, my team has always said overall, the economy in the U.S., for example, have a very soft landing. And I think we know now that there's really not any threat of a recession. It looks like a very soft landing, and inflation's under control like in the U.S. So I do see cycles, but the cycles are very much related to news reports from certain companies, let's say losing contracts or not, they're showing me bumps in the road relative to large companies as opposed to the overall market. But the larger companies do help swing the market a bit. So yeah, I see cycles, but no major issue. I guess this person's asking August, September. 40, hi Sterling, can you see what the future of the Etsy marketplace will be? I've been selling on there since its inception, 2006, but it's changed so much over the years, and handmade is not a priority anymore. The site is oversaturated with resellers. Is this going to change anytime in the future? And will Etsy go back to being a truly handmade site again? Unfortunately, I get it's going to evolve or devolve, depending on how you want to define it, to much more of a commercial site. So much less moving away from cottage industry and handmade, more towards fully commercialized commercial organizations like on that site. But my team's also saying 2 more website platforms are coming online here over the next year, 12 months. Looks like they'll start to take the place of what Etsy was. So a bit of an evolution here, and maybe a bit of a de-evolution on Etsy relative to many more commercial companies getting involved rather than homemade products. 39, hello Sterling. There was a bill introduced that California legislators had to reveal when they met lobbyists and who they are. Is the bill going to go through, and will other states enact the same similar things? Yes, I see the California bill will go through. I see the federal government in tow will actually do the same kind of a thing. The federal government side of that looks like it won't happen until after the 2024 election period. Looks like California's bill will pass. And it's analogous. My team has talked about this before, but it's almost, if you look at NASCAR, any of the motorsports where the drivers wear suits that have all the sponsors' patches all over them, so you can see very well what sponsors are of the driver. You're effectively going to have that kind of transparency with a lot of people in government and Congress and a lot of legislators. So it's coming. Looks like California is going to lead the way there. 38, will all the work put towards holding 45 responsible be wiped away someday by a Republican president or by anyone? No, I don't see that happening. I don't see everything being wiped away. No, not at all. 37, hi Sterling. A few years ago, we held my sister's wedding at Willow Camp Lodge, a very historic property near Stinson Beach in Northern California. Built in 1917. The first night we were there, I woke myself up screaming after having a dream that I was being attacked by an entity. I fell back asleep and it happened again. A very literal dream where an entity was trying to press on top of my chest while I was asleep in the guest room. Again, I woke myself up screaming. We found out the house was used often by the Manhattan Project, and Oppenheimer's team himself would visit. Also, that a man had been murdered there by his butler who was having an affair with his wife. What was it that haunted me that night? Why no one else was haunted, given there were 11 of us staying in the house? Well, I do get that this was an apparition of an individual who was murdered in the house. And whoever asked this question, you appear to be uh, really not just clairsentient, but also claircognitive. You got a knowingness and a sensitivity to that. So you have a couple of heightened clair capabilities that your other family members or the other 11 people don't have. But my team's saying it relates to an apparition that was murdered in the house, I'm sorry to say. 36 in the countdown. Hi, Sterling and team. Is chronic fatigue syndrome, or CFS, genetic, and will there ever be a cure? Yeah. Looks to me like they're saying that really in this year, it's interesting. I'm getting some breakthroughs in chronic fatigue syndrome treatment coming out of Australia. Looks like Australia. So those in Australia, I do some research there. It looks like some breakthroughs are coming through there. Now, whatever breakthroughs are happening this year in 2023 will also lead to other cures in about 5 years, again, using CRISPR gene editing technology in that area too. But it looks like Australia is making some headway here. Very interesting. Yeah, very interesting. And my team's also saying that it could also be related to fibromyalgia treatment or research. Again, not a doctor, but that's what they're telling me. 35, 45's Legal Defense Fund lets wealthy donors pay off potential witnesses in secret. This was published in Raw Story. Do you see 45 defeating his upcoming court cases by having potential witnesses paid off? No, I don't see the witnesses being paid off. I don't see this being successful. I think they're going to try, but I don't see this being successful. Feels like there's a lot of transparency around this, and either federal officials, government officials onto this, so because they know who the witnesses are. So it doesn't look like it's going to have any great effect. And it looks like many of the trials that 45's in will move through to conviction. Absolutely. Okay, 34 in the countdown. In movies and on TV, extraterrestrials are mostly portrayed as naked, even though many of these programs also highlight ETs as being much more intelligent than us. Do ETs wear clothes, similar to clothing worn on Earth, jewelry, tattoos? Well, so in my experience in dealing with them, they all wear high technology spacesuits, which are almost like having a second skin. So what you're looking at is actually not the skin of the extraterrestrial. You're actually looking at a very high tech spacesuit, and they in varying colors. Some are green, some are gray, some are violet. But these are high-tech spacesuits, so that's what you're seeing. It's not that they're going around naked. No, not at all. And I don't see ever a lot of focus on jewelry or tattoos. A lot of markings. They use a lot of different types of markings that transcend different species. Just like we have languages here on Earth, some languages transcend a lot of nations, but they do have. They're showing me, diagrams, images, symbols. So nothing about jewelry, though. They'll put those symbols on jewelry, and really not a lot of focus on tattoos. No. Oh, they're also reminding me that they do have high tech. So it's not jewelry, but sometimes they may have different types of technology which may control heart rate, rhythm, communication devices. So some people may see that looking like jewelry, but they're just telling me it's more like technology. 33, Sterling, rewilding is proven to be very effective in restoring nature. Is the U.S. going to get these kind of programs going in any significant way? Yeah, over the next number of years here, it looks like rewilding will really take over with trying to restore ecological ecosystems in various places around the world, not just the U.S. So it looks like this rewilding is really doing it in a way where you don't have a lot of human intervention, as opposed to other ways to restore an ecology and an ecological environment with a lot of human interaction. I do see a lot less human interaction. So starting out creating some sort of a ecosystem that then, let's say, feeds on itself and grows and develops without a lot of human intervention. Yeah, they're telling me over the next few years here, it's really going to start to become very popular and move forward. 32, Canadian Prime Minister Justin Trudeau and his wife, Sophie, have announced their separation, stating that political life had much to do with their choice to separate. Do you see them reuniting with Justin when Justin is no longer Prime Minister of Canada? Yes, absolutely. It looks to me like they're actually going to rekindle their relationship eventually when Prime Minister Trudeau is out of office. Yeah, they're saying it's going to restore the relationship. Now, this may be a couple of years, so it won't be right away. But yeah, it looks like they're going to restore the relationship. 31, greetings, Sterling and team. I grew up in a house that seemed to embrace me with a loving warmth. My brother was the opposite because he feared shadows he could see moving in the dark. One night, his son saw a menacing black mist rise out of the hallway floor. What was it in that house? And is it still there now that we've all moved away? I get these are benevolent spirits of a family that lived in that house. So nothing to be worried about. Looks like your brother was more sensitive to it. That's why he saw it. But these are benevolent spirits. I think you said dark mist or menacing black mist. They're benevolent. It's a family that used to live there. 30. Hi, Sterling. If we pick our parents and environment when we incarnate, does this mean we also agree to a certain number of romantic soulmates, husbands and wives? Can we be in love with more than one romantic partner at a time? Does the spirit world have any judgment towards non-monogamous agreements? Well, there's no judgment. Remember, we set up our life path blueprint before we come down. That includes the number of soulmates that we put on our life path. And we all have many soulmates in our life path. So first off, soulmates can be girlfriends, boyfriends, husbands, wives, even bosses at work, colleagues, best friends. So anyway, soulmates always teach you an important lesson of the heart. So can you have more than one soulmate at a time? Yeah, you can. But this is all how you set up your life path and your life path lessons. I will tell you that sometimes when people have a lot of monogamous, a lot of ongoing relationships at one time, let's say if you're looking on the romantic side, many times that speaks to trying to fill a hole in your heart. So again, it's another lesson of the heart. So no judgment, but it's how you lay out your life path blueprint and the number of soulmates you put on that life path. 29. Hello, Sterling and team. Before the invasion of Ukraine, Florida's retirement system held investments in Russia, in Russian-based entities that were valued at around $300 million, or about 0.15% of all investments. Recent reporting shows that government DeSantis is not willing to divest these funds, and they have been depleted by over $200 million so far. Does your spirit team see the governor ever ending the state's involvement with Russian businesses through the state's pension fund? If not, what will happen to all the pension funds? Unfortunately, I don't see Florida or the governor divesting out of these Russian-based funds. Looks like they're going to stay with it. Looks like there's an obligation there somehow, something going through government in that area, local government, where there's an obligation to these Russian entities. So that's why it's going to stay. But I do see over the next few years, looks like that fund does kind of restore itself. So it looks like all is not lost. It's not going to be short term, but so I don't see the government backing off or divesting from those Russian funds, unfortunately. 28, Washington State has been a Democratic state for over 40 years. Our current governor has decided to retire after 3 terms. I don't see any Democrats running so far except one, and she's not well known. Will we end up with a Republican? I'm getting there'll be as many as 3 Democratic running mates, like 2 men and a woman. And it looks like it will end up being a Democrat that wins the election. It looks like it'll be a man to me. So whoever asked the question, it looks like there'll eventually be at least 3 Democrats running. And they're showing me it'll continue to be a Democratic opposition. 27, hi, Sterling. In North Bergen, New Jersey, where I grew up, it has a lot of reported UFO sightings. In 1975, there was a sensational story that a liquor store owner was driving home at night through the town's very large park, and his car stopped, radio had static, then silenced, and he saw a giant spacecraft hovered in front of his car and little gray beings with large eyes come out. He told reporters it felt like only 10 minutes had passed, but his wife said he was 3 hours late in coming home. Was his story true? Absolutely true story. Absolutely, I'm getting, and this area of North Bergen, New Jersey, is actually one of the hottest UFO UAP hotspots in the nation. So, absolutely a true story. With this liquor store, I'm not familiar with the story, but my team's saying it's absolutely a true story. 26. Why are more young people experiencing blood clots? Well, again, I'm not a doctor, but I'm getting this is an after effect of the COVID-19 pandemic. So this is related to the virus itself, not related to medications or vaccines, but it's related to the number of the variants of the COVID-19 pandemic. Yeah. 25. When 45 runs for 2024, and when runs for 2024, will it be as close a race as in 2020? Will 70 plus million still vote for him this time around? Or will Biden have a more significant lead? I'm getting, and I said this before, it's going to be a very close race right down to the wire. Biden will win, but it's not going to be a slam dunk. It looks like it'll be a lot of support for 45. So yeah, it's not going to be won by a large margin. So it'll be a very close race. It will be. 24. With overpopulation of dogs and cats, many are routinely being euthanized. Will breeding ever get regulated and licensed? If so, when? Hey, I see new federal funding coming to help this animal population problem, but it looks like that funding is coming from the new corporate minimum tax rate. I've talked about this before, that 15% minimum tax rate, here in the U.S. But looks like federal funding is coming over the next couple of years here that will start to then help with the situation, help with spay, neutering, managing the problem. Looks like more resources coming in. But that again, that comes after the 2024 election. 23. I keep hearing about Hunter and Joe Biden having nefarious connections to foreign governments. Will charges be brought against them? Will they be convicted? Will Joe be impeached? No to all of the assertions herein. So the answer is actually emphatically no to all the questions that were asked here. Okay, 22 on the countdown. Why has the government been keeping us in the dark about UFOs, UAPs? Also, why are some people not ready to hear about or deal with the truth about UFOs? Well, the actual request came from over a dozen extraterrestrial species. So this is not just the government, but over a dozen extraterrestrial species asked the world's governments not to completely reveal everything. Now, there's been some nefarious activity by some contractors and some inside government officials to harness some new technologies. But it really is not just the government. So, and I think in my experience with humanity, that a lot of people are not ready to accept what's out there. And I see even a lot of leading edge scientists are hard to accept that there's even other life forms out there, other advanced civilizations. So it's all coming, but that's why it hasn't been disclosed. Many people, even now today, you can find people very close to you or friends or colleagues, people in your neighborhood. They're not ready to completely accept and welcome this whole topic, but it's coming. It's coming just in a couple of years here. We talked about full disclosure. 21, Hi Sterling, with so many counties and hospitals across the U.S. losing GYNs, some women across the country aren't getting the needed health care. And a lot of cases waiting will cause detriment to the woman's health, and infant fatalities are up across the U.S. How do you and your guide see the solution to this crisis? Well, it's going to be rough up through like the very beginning of 2025. So it looks like, after the presidential election, there's new legislation coming, new funding. This is going to be a process here, a little bit of a pendulum swinging back and forth. But my team's saying as we get up into like 2025, you're going to see a lot of this being restored in terms of the right doctors, medications, laws, regulations. All this is going to come back towards supporting women's reproductive rights and the kind of help that's needed. So a little bit of a rough patch here, 2023, 2024, a little bit of a rough patch, and then we'll start 2025. It's going to get better. 20, hello, Sterling. In consideration of reincarnation, is it very common that we have been our ancestors? If so, what is the rationale for choosing this? Well, we all come from very unique spiritual families of thousands of members. So it actually, in many cases, if you go back 100, 200 years, you actually may have been a part of your ancestry. So it's all part of a continuing elevation energetically of the lessons you want to learn. So you say if you were around 200 years ago, you may want to come back then in the same family structure, but with renewed life lessons. So that it's very common. Not everybody does it, but not unique that individuals can actually, in some cases, trace who they were. We see that all the time in history. Who they were prior to being reincarnated in this lifetime. 19, thank you, Sterling and team. What will happen after disclosure of ETs? Will indigenous spiritual knowledge be revived without fear of being ridiculed? With colonization, we lost a lot of knowledge and practices and embraced Christianity. Most indigenous societies seem to have common beliefs, which is opposite to Catholic beliefs. Will we turn away from organized religious dogmas, especially here in Africa, where religion has been growing? Well, yes, the emergence of extraterrestrials worldwide will turn a lot of religions on their heads. It will. Now, what's interesting is that if you go back in history, a lot of extraterrestrials were very out in the open, and you see a lot of cave drawings and images like inside the pyramids. So, they were very out in the open. So kind of religion coexisted with extraterrestrials. As it evolved, it moved away from that understanding. So as extraterrestrials and the world's and the universe's history becomes more well-known, it will certainly have an impact on the world's religions, a little bit of a reset. It'll actually turn them on their head. It will. 18, is Dr. Stephen Greer an extraterrestrial? No, not at all. 17, hi, Sterling. I live in England, and I am worried about the UK government's plan to build a road tunnel underneath the Stonehenge site. Will the plan ever go ahead? Yeah, I get an emphatic yes. The plan's going to go ahead. It's going to relieve traffic in that area. I don't bring more revenue or economic function to that area. May have already been approved. I don't follow the news in that area very much, but my team's saying like an emphatic yes, that plan's going to go ahead. 16, hello, Sterling and team. Elon Musk seems to be losing his mental capacity to deal with situations on a professional level. Do you see him falling further and further into decline? For entertainment purposes only, over the next few years here, you're going to notice a significant decline in the way the businesses are being managed and success of the businesses. So there's an effect here, a lot of his businesses with this individual we're talking about. So yeah, it's a bit of getting more and more kind of erratic and out of control. 15, hi, Sterling and team. There's a large and growing population of older people, particularly women, who are childless and facing old age without family support and unpaid family caregiving in this country, as this country relies on it for its aging adults. This will hit women without substantial wealth the hardest. Do you see anything that will make life better for this population in the future? I do. My team's saying in the years 2026 to 2030, you're going to see big increases in federal spending, investment, and new programs to help in this area with the aging population. But they're showing me the years 2026 to 2030. Doesn't mean planning won't start, but looks like really fully rolled out programs. So I don't know who asked this question, what your age is, but so that's what a number of years here, it's actually going to be in effect, and there'll be programs that will support the aging without kind of the resources to enable caregiving. There's actually federal programs here coming. They'll be substantial. 14, Sterling, is Melania Trump and Barron also going to flee to Saudi Arabia with 45 at the same time or at a later time, or not at all? Looks to me like Melania and Barron are going to end up in Europe. So it does not look like they're going to end up permanently in the Middle East or Saudi Arabia. Looks like they're going to end up in some part of Europe. 13, when you die and go the other side, do you have to stay with your soul group, family, or can you go somewhere else? We're all part of an extended spiritual family. You've heard me say that many times on these shows, thousands of members on the other side. But when you go across, there's a lot of free will. So you can choose to stay with your unique soul family. If you want to move to another unique soul family, you can. Obviously, it's all about your energetic development and the lessons that you want to learn when you're down here. So yeah, you have the ability to shift if you want. 12, hi Sterling, do our pets pick which breed and color they will become before they are born, or are they always the same breed? No, they absolutely pick what breed and color they are and sex, male, female. It's very true. Also, a lot of animals, particularly if I look at horses and dogs, and I've talked about this before, I always see a lot of horses sometimes choosing to come down as dogs and dogs choosing to come down to this earth as horses. A lot of interchangeability among dogs and horses, but notwithstanding, all horses, all dogs, you can choose your breed, your color, all that before you come down. They do as they set up their life path. 11, Sterling, my husband can't understand why his life hasn't worked out the way he wanted. Can we go off our life path without knowing it, or is this life path or his life path he chose before coming here? Can you explain? Well, we never get off our life path. However, where free will intersects with your life path has everything to do with how fast you move through your life path and your level of satisfaction and are you happy? So dissatisfaction with a life path means that that's the universe kind of lighting a fire under your feet to say, move forward, make some changes. It's analogous. Sometimes people get fired. That's actually a congratulatory day. The universe is giving you a very strong message. Time to move on. Likewise, if you're dissatisfied, frustrated, that's a message from your angelic team, your guides and angels. Let's take a step back here. Let's figure out what might be going on, where changes might be relevant. And then maybe you might start communicating with your angels and guides and look for ways to manifest new outcomes in your life. So it's always, I always tell people, if every week you were just delivering pizzas and making $1 million a week, most people would make very few changes in their life. But what happens is, the universe puts certain challenges and signposts along the way and make us feel uncomfortable, dissatisfied. It's always a message to keep moving forward, explore, push forward on kind of a better outcome. 10. Hi, Sterling. As a Colombian, I'm concerned about my country. We've been decades with an internal war between government and guerrillas because of the drug market, and politically, it's really unstable. When will my country be free from these wars? When will it be more stable? Well, I see great strides being made over the next several years. So pick 2-3 years here. I see a shift going on within Colombia. But it's like moving farmers away from the cocaine trade or cocoa or whatever this is, the cocaine plants, moving them more towards pot plants. So it's like cultivating marijuana pot as it becomes legalized worldwide and even in Colombia, maybe. I'm not an expert here, but looks like the government incentives, like new government coming online to incentivize farmers to move away from cocaine production, other types of monetary production. And then from there, that kind of plants the seed, so to speak, of a new political agenda, a new way of generating income. It looks like a lot of green technology coming for Colombia as well. So there's an evolution coming up here. I would say hang tight, but I do see it's like we're on the tipping point here for Colombia regarding shifting the focus of a lot of farmers and the things that have supported the cocaine trade. 9, will Indiana become a blue state in the next 5 to 10 years? Well, unfortunately, it looks like it's going to be a Republican stronghold for a good time to come here. Whether that's over 5 or 10 years, looks like for some reason they're saying, again, not an expert in this area, but they're saying a real Republican stronghold and will continue to be. 8, Elizabeth Warren brought up the idea that student loan debt borrowers should be able to discharge their debt in bankruptcy. Do you see this going anywhere and becoming a reality? I do, but it looks like what they're telling me is you won't be able to discharge 100% of the debt, more like 50% of it or 2/3 of it. So not a complete discharge in bankruptcy, but still only like maybe a third of the student loan. So something coming that's going to be beneficial over the next year to 2 years here. It could be a little faster. They're saying not a full discharge. 7, a few years ago, I was sitting by the window in a dark living room of our home in the late hours of the night. I got a slight urge to try something out. So I put both my palms on the table facing upwards, also known as the receiving position, closed my eyes, and set the intention out to invite in any entities that may be listening to come closer to me and communicate. Around 10 seconds later, my heart started pulsing faster and faster. I began to feel great fear and anxiety, and I could swear I felt something there. I suddenly stopped, and I did not want to go any further. What happened there? Well, these were your angels and guides coming in close to you to communicate with you. I remember the first time my wife had that happen. It actually happened at an event where we're up with Fred Fassett, the psychic medium. But when guides started coming around her angels and guides started to get heart palpitations. Her heart was racing, cold sweat. So yeah, that's very analogous. If you're not used to bringing that energy in and working with it and balancing it, it can feel that way. Nothing scary. But that's very typical what happens when your angels and guides start coming in close. 6 in the countdown. Hi, Sterling and team. Many remote viewers who are in the study of Stephen Schwartz see some huge event around 2040 to 2050 that will put civilization in peril. They say by 2060, we will emerge from this crisis. What do you see happening? I don't see anything major in that time frame, but there's a lot of events happening around extraterrestrial revelation, full disclosure, new medical technologies, new energy technologies, saving the world, climate change, dismantling of nuclear arsenals. I see a lot of world events happening, but I don't see something that's going to take the world down, so to speak. I think the way this is being described here, 2040, 2050, put civilization in peril. Nuclear energy, nuclear arsenals, those are all things that we're going to put in place, and extraterrestrials already started to help in that area. So nothing specifically to that time frame in terms of what my team is telling me. Okay, 5 in the countdown. Sterling, are the babies that are born now already spiritually evolved and come to Earth now to help humanity? No, not necessarily the case. In many cases, it's true that older souls are coming down to Earth. Now, all souls were created at the same time. So older soul actually reflects the number of reincarnations they've had. Older souls typically have had over 80 reincarnations, sometimes over 100. So some older souls are coming down, but it's not the truth that all babies coming down now are older souls or here to help humanity. Everybody did agree to be here during this time period to help with the Earth reset, including babies coming down right now. But there is a spread, a little differentiation of the types of babies that are coming into this world. So anyway, not all are older souls. I think the way they asked is, are you spiritually evolved? Yeah, so not all babies are spiritually evolved. Older souls tend to get it much faster, and they say very deep elements, things that you wouldn't expect from a young child. So you can always tell an old soul, if you have one in your household, they say things that are far beyond their years and very insightful. 4 in the countdown. Will e-wallets ever replace physical wallets? Yes, they're already starting within 5 to 10 years here. E-wallets or digital wallets will be the predominant way that people handle finances and credit card transactions. Yeah, it's already coming. So 5 to 10 years here, it's going to be really the norm. Number 3 in the countdown. Hello, Sterling. A lot of the political leadership in the Netherlands are stepping down. Are the new people that are coming in going into a different direction, or is it going to be pretty much the same as the old government? It looks like the new government leaders will be much more moderate and focused on the population. So it looks like, let's say, not so radical or conservative. It looks like much more moderate to me. So the wave of new people coming in looks like I'll call it more enlightened or more moderate. So that's what they're showing me coming up here for the Netherlands. Yeah. And then number 2 and number 1, our final 2 questions in the countdown. I always take notes beforehand, and so I'm going to read those back to you. So number 2 in the countdown, do you see anything coming up this week? New allegations in the January 6th federal lawsuit and additional co-defendants being identified. So there's something come up here with new co-defendants that are going to be identified. A new explosion in a major city like Chicago or New York, and it could be in both cities, but I don't want people to get worried because this could be some sort of an inner city explosion, but it doesn't look like there's a lot of loss of life, but it's like highly inconvenient. It gets a lot of police attention, but they're talking to me about some kind of explosion here. And it looks like it's kind of a man-made explosion. So this is not like a natural, like sewer explosion, so to speak. But something here like, somebody's trying to send a message, scare people. And now that my team's talking about this, it could be related to, all the activity going on around all the 45 cases. Looks like somebody, could be a lone wolf here, is trying to scare some people. So everybody, not to worry, but they're talking about some level of explosion here. A hell scare for Rudy Giuliani and again for Mitch McConnell, I'm sorry to say. So I really wish them all the best, love and light. We don't want to wish anything bad on anybody, but kind of a hell scare here. So for those 2 individuals, be careful. And then looks like, new indictments coming this week, and these could be the ones we're going to see here from Georgia. So looks like there's something tipping the scales here as we get into next week. And number 1, do you have anything your guides want to share? Reach out to someone you have not talked with in a number of years and just check in with them. They could use your comfort and love. That's a message for people that are thinking about reaching out to people that have not talked with them in a number of years. And sometimes, the most unexpected calls have the most loving benefit for those that we know. So that concludes the show being recorded today for Sunday, July 6, 2023. As always, if you need to reach me, go to sterlingpsychicmedium.com, look for the Book a Session tab. Next week, I will be doing a show with Linda G, the Comanche Psychic, on Linda's channel. And I'm going to send you out a lot of goodwill and tremendous love to you and your families. Take care. I'll see you again soon.